excited to have you here tonight for another session of Anteater Wellness Wednesday. I appreciate you taking your time tonight on a Wednesday to be with us and to celebrate some Anteater pride. And on behalf of UCI Alumni Association, we want to welcome you. And Anteater Wellness Wednesday actually started as a result of the pandemic and giving us opportunities for our chapters to present topics of all sorts of gamut that runs different wellness topics. So tonight we have a special group, and it's not just one chapter presenting, but it's actually two chapters, our ICS chapter and our NYC chapter. ICS, for those of you who don't remember when you were here at UCI, it's the Information Computer Sciences Donald Bren School. So, and then we also have our chapter here. We have regional chapters, and so the New York City chapters also representing here. So we're excited for them to be here, and they're going to be presenting, as you already know, about professional and personal wellness and financial wellness during a pandemic. So very appropriate right now for everything that's going on. And I'm going to give you a couple tips about our housekeeping today. All our guests are muted, and we will be having a Q&A at the end of our program. However, we'll be doing it in the chat function. You'll see the chat at the bottom of your screen, and we have enabled it where the chat will only go to questions to our hosts. And at the very end, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A question and answer time. So make sure you put your questions in there, but be aware that you won't be talking to other members in the audience. It'll be questions just for our panelists. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers. Tonight we have a special tetrad presenting, and you might say, what's a tetrad? Well, it is a group of four, and our panelists are an Anteater powerhouse of four family members, and Avi Pai, a graduate of UCI's Division of Continuing Education CFP program, is currently a distinguished instructor there and in his 14th year of teaching. And he is married to Pooja Lohia, and Pooja is the eldest sibling of the Lohia family, and her siblings are Payal and Pavan. The Lohia siblings all received their undergraduate degrees from UCI. So there we've got our four Anteaters there, and you are in for a special treat with this powerhouse family. I'm now going to pass this on to Payal to start the rest of our introduction today. Thank you, Payal, and thank you everyone for being here.
Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Thank you all for taking the time out of your Wednesday night to join the Wellness Wednesday series from UCI. I'm Payal Lohia. I'll do a more formal introduction a little bit later. But 2020 has been quite the adventure. It's changed the way that we approach personal and professional development and how we evaluate the health of our finances. No matter where you are in your career today, staying relevant professionally and being financially secure for the future is going to be a big part of not only your success, but also wellness. Now, at the beginning of COVID, maybe even now, there was a trend to hashtag cancel 2020. But what if 2020 is actually the year we've been waiting for? To put a positive perspective on 2020, even though it continues to be a tough time for everyone. With Thanksgiving around the corner, it's given us a time to reflect what we're grateful for, but then also potentially look at the silver lining of 2020 and see that this can be a great time to reflect and reconsider your goals. It can be the year that forces us to evolve and transform our lives. Now, everyone's lives and priorities are different. Even amongst us four siblings, we have different lives, different priorities. However, as we go through this presentation, the common themes that you'll see amongst all four of us across the decades is the importance that we place on having a plan and diversification in all three areas: personal, professional, and financial. And before we start the presentation, I want to caveat that we're not experts. We're just planners. This is how we operate. This is how we run our lives. And those of you that know us for that trait. Now, we look forward to sharing our respective journeys, including what we would do differently if we went back in time, and also what we have planned for the future to manifest the most full life we possibly can. So without further ado, we'll kick off the presentation with my brother, Pavan Lohia.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Pavan Lohia. I'm the current New York City alumni president. I graduated in 2017 from UCI with a bachelor's in public health sciences and a minor in business management. And just recently in June, I completed my master's of public health here in New York City at the City University of New York. Currently, I'm a clinical researcher at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City, as well as a program fellow at the National Science Foundation here in Washington, D.C. What I'm going to cover briefly is how I've been where I am today in my 20s and kind of the path I've taken along to get here. Personally, just a little background, I was not this type of planner, nor was I any sort of expert on really how to kind of progress through my 20s. Transitioning out of high school into a college career and building a career forward. A lot of that experience I've gotten has come from listening to my mentors, especially my sisters and my brother-in-law, as well as having a very unique friend circle from all different backgrounds. Someone as being in healthcare, we tend to associate with biology people, physical sciences. In that respect, I've been able to build outward, both through my jobs as well as just my personal activities, which has been very helpful. And throughout college and now into my postgraduate studies and career building, right now I do work 2 jobs full-time, both in New York City and Washington, D.C., living 2 different lives. But that is based on my goals of where I want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So while this is not ideal for everyone, I do think it's very important to focus on, giving up certain luxuries, so to say, or personal habits in order for a bigger goal. And this was a saying that, I've held dear to my heart from my days at very first days at UCI since I was a transfer student. Was, build your network for when you want it, not for when you need it. And I think that's very key because your network is not just, mentors, or so to say, but, they're also your friends. And I think that's very key to remember throughout this entire presentation. I think you'll see that as a common theme between me, my sisters, and my brother-in-law is really maintaining a strong network, relationship building, and that will really propel you forward, as well as, keeping in touch. And lastly, financially, in 20s, you tend to have a lot of fun, a lot of social obligations. Obviously with COVID, that's changed a little, but right now it's been very important working these multiple jobs, having these side hustles that I engage in, so to say, that is helping me prepare financially to not be obligated to educational debt, and allowing me to build forward without having certain holdbacks, so to say. Next slide. So overall, I'd like to say, being 26 years old, I did have a heavy focus on education from the get-go. As somebody who wants to pursue medicine, it does require a lot of time commitment, educationally and work-wise, and in extracurricular activities. But a lot of that came from, listening to people, having a set plan. And even if you have a plan, it's important to know that there's going to be constant changes. I will say, as being a transfer student, not every class is a perfect A+ or anything by any means. So just because you have different starts or a goal at the beginning to reach the end, I wouldn't say I've taken any conventional path by any means. As well as my siblings, we've all taken unique paths. But I think the key is a focus on a major goal and then being able to adapt as I move forward. And looking back, I did have a lot of fun in high school. I didn't have a lot of guidance. And I think that did ultimately show up later on when I was in my early or late teens to early 20s. But it is important to kind of know if you're starting off early, where you want to be. And again, constant reevaluation as your life changes. There's always going to be family issues, social, your social obligations or financial issues that may arise. So being able to adapt quickly and being able to pay attention to that and being honest with yourself, keyword being, being really open to yourself, that's very important. But at the same time, I would also say this is the time where you're young, you have a lot of independence and freedom, and I say take advantage of that. While my time at UCI, I was able to do a study abroad, which I met many great friends, some of who are even here tonight. It really changed my perspective, opportunities like that, being able to travel, not being held back by certain relationships or friendships that really did allow my career and my life to really take off. And I've seen everything as an opportunity. The reason I do a dual city life right now is because of the opportunities that are being presented to me now, and also that will hopefully be down in the future as well. So if anything to take away is really just keep your eyes open and be willing to accept change as needed. And thank you. Kyle.
Oops, I'm jumping ahead. Hi, everyone. Pyle Ohia. I am the co-president of the New York City Alumni Chapter alongside my brother, Pavan. I graduated from UCI in 2006. I got a bachelor's in economics and a minor in business management. After graduation, I started working at Capgemini as a management consultant. And afterwards, I worked at DirecTV in their software engineering department, where I led the introduction of all the content streaming capabilities, which is now just our world that we live in media and entertainment. Most recently, I graduated with my double executive MBA from UCLA Anderson in August of 2019, where I received a STEM certification and a concentration in international business strategy. I currently work at AT&T, where I lead our product innovation initiatives, which essentially generates new revenue streams for the business at large. And a fun fact about me, I love traveling. I've gotten the privilege of being able to travel with both my sister and my brother-in-law and friends. And last year with my MBA, I clocked in country number 42. So excited once it's safe to get back and start traveling again. So in your 30s, you're going to be continued to be pulled in many different directions. But this is also the time period in your life where you can capitalize on your career growth. I'll take you through a snapshot of where I am today and some things that are working for me to help me accomplish my goals. Personally, similar to what Pavan said, I wasn't much of a planner. I had my social activities and work meetings and such always calendarized, but not necessarily my own life. And in the last couple of years, especially right before COVID, I think I truly started my journey of self-discovery, really taking that time to identify what's important to me, what I want out of life, near term and long term. And it's given me, a bigger sense of peace knowing I know what I want. I just feel like I know myself better. And one of the other things that helped me develop my plan and identify my values is now that I'm saving on all this time not commuting to work, I have extra time to really discover my hobbies and passions. And those really inform what I want to do in life overall. Shifting that into where I am professionally, just like I have to identify what my goals are for my life, I also have to identify what my goals are for at work. And, having my brother-in-law, my brother, seeing how they have these side hustles already, both younger and below me, and they have second jobs. I'm working one job, but what can I be doing? What brings me joy outside of work? And if there's an economic downturn, as we're seeing right now, what's going to sustain me? if I unfortunately lose my job. And that's part of this journey that I'm going on. Not only is it helping me identify what I want out of my own personal life, but what I want out of my career. And one of the things that I think you should be doing, whether regardless of what your job is, to always stay on top of new trends. There's multiple ways to do this. And the reason I would say this is it not only helps you stay professional relevantly, but it's also for your own mental stimulation and growth. There's a few ways that I do it. There's knowledge-filled accounts on Instagram for quick and digestible content. As a family, we actually watch Shark Tank and The Profit, even with my niece and nephew. Just really being inspired in multiple ways. And there's so much information out there and so many new trends that just find what works for you and just make sure you make a little bit of time on the daily. Financially, again, piggybacking off of what Pavan said, continue saving as much as you can, wherever and whenever you can. Ideally before you have big commitments like family, kids, house. And even if you're at that point, figure out how much you can save in your life. And in parallel to that, create a plan to support the large financial expenses you're going to have down the line. You map that out to your life plan, and you'll kind of know what some of those big goals are and how you're going to be able to financially support that. So I'm proud of quite a few things that have gotten me to where I am today. When I look back, I'm proud of being independent, self-reliant. I didn't depend on anyone for my emotional and financial well-being. I explored the world with my friends and family, and I was able to support myself with no debt. And part of that was because I had strong money habits early on. I saved more than I spent, but I also got a financial advisor in my early 20s and started investing early on. And when things didn't go my way or I felt lost, I talked to my sister and my brother and brother-in-law, and I listened to what they had to offer me, what guidance they offered me. And it's hard to admit that you don't know what the answer is, or to admit that you're wrong. And one of the things that I pride myself on is not letting my ego get in the way and really just listening. And while those are good things, I regret that I wish I'd planned more. I wish I had planned better, and I wish I'd planned earlier. I feel like I could have approached my life and career differently or more appropriately had I really known what I wanted to get out of life. But again, better late than never, because I'm doing it now and I feel much more confident about my future. And one more thing to add to that was, I do wish I became financially literate earlier. This is definitely not something they teach you in college. And so, learn about how to do your taxes, what affects your credit scores, learn about all those things. There's so many articles about what college doesn't teach you, and take the time and actually learn those and apply them to your personal and professional and financial life. So, on the introspection side, going back to, I have been working on my journey of self-discovery in that personal, professional, financial areas to really understand how I want to invest appropriately, how I want to approach my career and my life accordingly. Part of that was something that I did this year during COVID, was creating a vision board. Think about back when you're in middle school and high school, and you had to cover your books, and you'd go through magazines like 17 or something, you'd cut out pictures and words that really resonated with you. And that's what was on your, that clear cover in your binder or on your book cover. So the vision board is something similar. I sat down in my room and opened up 15 magazines, and I created a vision board that's hanging in my room right now. And when I look at it every day, it really just helps remind me of what I'm working towards and what inspires me. And in the last few years, I've definitely spent a lot less time clocking in overtime. I did plenty of that when I was a consultant. And I spent that time and redirected it to discovering my hobbies and passions. I've talked to people younger than me, older than me, and tried to learn about their lives and what they do, how they approach their lives. And it's really just helped me understand what I do and don't want. And lastly, on the introspection side, I wish I'd said yes a lot more. I do say yes, but I can also see that I say no to a lot of instances or scenarios. And now what I've changed is when I think I'm about to say no to something, I just pause and I think, what if I said yes? Because everything can be an opportunity if you let it be. And so it's definitely a shift in mindset, but just taking that breath and thinking about it has really been helpful for me. Now, looking forward, I'm evaluating my personal and professional social networks. Like I said, when I did my journey of introspection, I started talking to a lot of people to understand their journeys. But in the future, I want to continue doing that. Not just this one time I started my journey and I'm done, but it's a lifelong journey. So anytime I meet someone, go beyond the basic surface level conversations and really try to get to know someone, because I think you have an opportunity to learn from everyone that comes along your path. Meditation, health, and wellness apps are definitely on the rise. For example, Calm is a very popular app. I personally did start using it this year. I think I'd kind of been against the concept of yoga and meditation in the past, and especially with everything going on in this pandemic, it's been very helpful for not only my mental health, but to remind me to be grateful every single day, that I am in a good place and I can only get better from here. Further reading, really reading small articles, books, really stimulating my mental development and continuing to nurture that growth mindset. And similarly to how I talked about thinking about exploring side hustles, really planning for that career displacement. We're at an all-time high for unemployment right now, and you don't know what's going to happen to your career. So learn how to make money passively, explore side hustles. What else can you do? Essentially diversify your personal portfolio. So if, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but if it does happen to you, then you have a backup plan and you can get back on your feet. And lastly, remember to value the process over the end results. I am definitely guilty of wanting to think of the final destination and just wanting to get there. And I've definitely spent this year trying to really enjoy the process and the journey to get to my destination. So really enjoy every moment, no matter what age you are, enjoy the journey to that destination. And now I will hand it off to my sister, Pooja.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pooja Lohia Pai. I am the current president of the ICS Alumni Chapter. We just started this year, 2020. So we had a very interesting start with COVID happening just a couple months in. I graduated from UCI in 2002 with my Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science, and I also did a minor in management. I interned at school. While I was there, I was an intern for the ICS department. After school, I worked at Fortune 500 companies, as well as in 2008, I graduated from USC with an MBA. At the same time, in 2008, I also got my Six Sigma black belt from Raytheon while I was working there. I've worked for many big corporations such as IBM, G4S, Raytheon. And in my free time, I love spending time with my family, my friends, my kids. I love watching Bollywood. And professionally, I'm a transformation consultant. I love incorporating process and methodology in my personal life as much as I love helping corporations transform their processes and efficiencies. I live and breathe efficiency and process, and pretty sure my family gets irritated, but I love it. So now I'm going to talk about somewhat of a little bit more of the late 30s and early 40s. I just recently turned 40, so I kind of can speak a little bit more to the late 30s. And as we are beginning our career in our 40s right now. My perspective is a little bit different from my brother and sister for a couple reasons. First reason is that I met my significant other, who's sitting right next to me, in my 20s. We met when I was 23. And we dated on and off, and we've now been married for over a decade. So my entire 30s, we have been married, and we also had kids. So that definitely puts a very different perspective on how we planned our personal, professional, and financial lives. I will go ahead and speak for both my husband and myself right now, just for the sake of time, and he's gonna go a little bit more into the financial section. So our difference that I would highlight is that we're just being pulled in very different directions at many different times. We can't really just focus on ourselves. I also have to focus on the kids that we have. We own a house, we've done some remodels, and my husband owns his own business. So one thing that I would like to go over is personally, right now in the 30s and 40s, it is the biggest clash of having a job, having a family, having your house, having your money and profession. And you kind of have to be good at everything because this is your peak earning period. You have a pretty good amount of energy, you know, you're still young, but it's a very high demand on resources, specifically, you know, money, but also time. And the biggest thing that we've had to do is really prioritize, like constantly prioritize and reprioritize. And I'll kind of speak to planning because that obviously goes hand in hand. We can't really prioritize if we don't have a plan in place. The other thing that I would recommend personally, again, I think I've been very good at it since my 20s, and which is what I have passed on to my siblings, is really having the plan, but also taking the personal inventory of your past, present, and future. The reason you have to do all three, just like you have to look at your personal, professional, and financial life, is you need to know what you did good and bad in the past and how you want to change and reshape it, as well as what you're doing good and bad right now in the present. And then again, what would you want to do in the future? And you can't really plan your future until you look at your past and present. Alongside with that, we are now sitting down as a family and as a couple, recreating our vision board and goal setting for our 50s. And when we look at the end of our 40s or early 50s, our kids will probably be in college. Our son is almost 8, so if 10 years from now, he'll be 18, and hopefully he wants to get to UCI. So we have to look at goal setting for our family, ourselves, and in that way, kind of like empty nesting, like what would we do once our kids go off to college? What does that life look like? So professionally, this is the biggest time in your life, like your 30s and 40s, to make some really big money and have some really great titles. What I recommend is what are ways professionally you can elevate yourself. Again, there are so many resources that are being demanded at the same time. How can you elevate yourself? And you can't do everything all at once. And I think the battle is picking and choosing what you can focus on. And again, reevaluating it. One component that I really emphasize is really finding ways to work smarter. And I'll go into that in the next slide a little bit more. But it's not about really working harder, because that just means more hours, and time is a very precious commodity. So how do you work smarter and more efficiently? Because, you know, you're not really going to get paid for, you know, just sitting and working if you're a salaried employee for 80 hours. So how do you work better at 40 hours? And again, as my brother and sister have mentioned, how do you have a side hustle or a plan for career displacement or income shift? Like, where do you make money passively? And one of the best ways to make money passively, which again, my husband will speak to, is having your finances in order so your money can make you money if you can't have a side hustle. So financially, I will talk about a little bit more of a personal portfolio assessment kind of, and my husband will talk more about financial planning as more of a comprehensive approach across all decades. So we sit down financially and discuss our plan for vacations, home remodels, if we're going to be single earner, dual income family. We also discuss our save plan for where, if there is a career downturn or displacement. The most important thing, especially if you have a family, is to really make sure that you formalize your estate planning documents. We cannot emphasize that enough, to make sure you have a plan if there's any disability or death of any sort, to really have a financial plan, especially if kids are in place. Obviously, a nice to have would be a plan for your kids' college tuition, if that is a priority, to support your kids. And long run, looking at what retirement looks like. Is retirement really at 65? Is it at 70? Or is it something you want to do earlier? So what I'm going to now speak to is our retrospective, prospective, and where we are. So what I feel like I did right, I felt like I grew up in a very rough childhood, and I had a kind of a very toxic environment, and I removed myself from it. And that was very important for my success and for me to be well, I guess, as we speak about wellness. And not only did I remove myself, but I also helped and removed my siblings. I mentored them and I empowered them. And, today we are where we are because I helped uplift them. Other things I think that I did really well is I got all of my education done before we had a family. So some of these parts actually apply to both me and my husband, since we've been together, and I'm just gonna kind of speak for him right now. We both got our undergraduates, we got all our certifications and things like that done in our 20s. And we both worked multiple jobs, and we both really focused to be independent professionally while we were in our relationship together, and just for ourselves. So he started his own business, and I was just very focused on being financially independent. The thing that we also had going for us, and we were very aware, is we had great credit. We maintained great credit. We have great finances, and we always communicated and aligned our goals. This has been very important in our 30s as we have a family and a house and things like that. We are constantly evaluating that. And again, as I mentioned, having an estate plan. What I would say about communicating and aligning goals is, you spend a lot of time planning your wedding, and you spend a lot of time planning vacations. But what about spending that time actually looking at your finances? And I don't think, a lot of people do that. And I think that's very important. So looking kind of, introspecting, what I think we did a lot of things great, but where we sacrificed was our health. And now we're really trying to take that focus of making sure our health is a priority, as well as, enjoying life and working and having our finances in order, and putting our hobbies and skills, like what are the other things that make us happy besides just going to work or being parents. Again, we also wish, as much as he's in the financial field and we are good at this, we still wish we had managed our finances even better and invested more early on and avoided consumerism. Hint, hint, Black Friday coming up. So, really buying what you may really need, and not just buying it because it's on sale. So I don't really look back and regret too much, partly because I've always just been a planner. I don't know if it's innately in me, but I have always kind of had a life plan, and not just one plan, but a backup plan if things just didn't go my way. And I'm always kind of taking an inventory of, am I kind of where I want to be? One thing I would emphasize about planning is the goal of planning is to be proactive and not reactive. And this is kind of the common theme that we'll be presenting along with finances is, if COVID hits and you're then trying to look for a job, it's being a little bit more reactive. And so the goal is to be like, hey, it could be anything. It could be another economic downturn. It could be elections. It could be whatever. And if you're proactive about your life, it will be less jarring when something changes. One thing I'm proud of is using, again, like I mentioned, my Six Sigma and business process skills in personal life. I'm all about calendars, taking inventory, planning, outsourcing even of what we what we are good at doing, and then what things we should be passing off to other people to do. So going forward, again, we're gonna really want to focus on health and wellness, not just physical wellness necessarily, but also mental and mindful of stress, working smarter, and outsourcing to avoid exhaustion. So for example, if you can hire someone to clean your house so that you're not spending that time doing it. Reducing clutter will also help with that mental wellness. So by that, we mean mental and physical items. And again, diversifying your professional, personal, and financial portfolios. So looking at all aspects of your life and having a plan. Have that plan, visit it frequently, communicate it with your partner, your family, stakeholders, basically people who are vested and who can keep you on track and kind of check you. We have even gone as far as basically making milestone plans for our kids. Again, we don't want to dictate their future, but we want to have milestones so we kind of are making sure that the kids are doing what they want to do. And if they don't, we have a checks and balances system. And we want to encourage everyone to update and evaluate their personal and professional social networks. And again, we're going as far as looking even at our kids' networks, because right now it's very important. Our kids are very sad since they don't get to go to school. So we have to make sure to help them find friends. It's not just friends for us, but friends for them. Next slide. So I'm going to talk about the top takeaways respective of any age, and then Avi will talk a little bit more about finance. So top takeaways, no matter what age, what decade, would be saving and investing. That's very important. Savings, a quick overview, is more just for emergencies, emergency fund, medical bills, whatever that may be. Investing is more for actually growing your money and having independence. While we talk about money, the one thing to keep in mind is while building wealth, please do not sacrifice your health. And that means focusing on your mental, emotional, physical health, because money, no matter how much you have, it cannot buy you health and happiness and time. So those are more precious commodities than even money. One very important takeaway that I think is very important and I think highlighted is having that growth and learning mindset and being very positive. So having a plan, the vision board, reevaluating it, again, personally, professionally, financially. A famous quote by Ben Franklin: if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And so if you don't have a plan, I think it's just, you're setting yourself up for more failures. And again, as I spoke, continuous transformation. Like life is going to change no matter what. Today it's COVID, tomorrow will be something else. So please, be aware of being continuously evolving. And not using this phrase of, hey, I'll get to it someday, or I'll get to it tomorrow. You really have to act now. You can't really say, oh, well, I'll save when I'm 50, because, hey, nobody saw COVID coming, and you don't know if you will lose your job or something. But while you do all that, please be, grateful and positive. There's a lot of good things. Hopefully all of us are in good health and have a roof over our heads. And fourth, none of us have it together, not any of us. So, we're obviously constantly evolving and changing our lives. And fifth, we encourage everyone to not only help themselves, but also to help others around you. So whether that be mentorship or teaching, guiding, praising, get involved in some aspect. And now we'll have Avi speak to finances.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Avi. I'm the final presenter tonight. Thank you guys for waiting around so long for me. I put my information on the screen here. I co-founded a wealth management boutique in Irvine called Providence Wealth in 2007. I started my career before that at American Express. You can see my history right there. I specialize in working with people that high net worth individuals, institutions, endowments, things like that. And my focus is tax management, retirement planning, investment strategies, stock options, things like that. Complex strategies basically for entrepreneurs. I can quickly go through my history there. I don't do all, as you can see, I've had some accolades, and I have, if you look at the third bullet point, I have like 4 or 5 designations. I make the joke that I have more letters after my name than actually in my name. And I don't say this to brag or anything, but I like to impress upon you guys that this is something I take seriously. I really do enjoy it. And unlike the previous 3 speakers that have talked more from a personal aspect, I'm going to be talking more about how it looks financially. The important thing to know, and you can see it in bold here, is that everything that I'll discuss tonight is meant to be general in nature and just educational. there's nothing, I can't answer any specific tax or investment or legal questions, so none of this is specific to be prescription advice. If you want to take action on anything I talk about tonight, you should consult with a professional, a licensed professional, before you do that. One thing that I think is important that I like to talk about is I've been teaching in the personal finance program at UC Irvine since 2006. And in 2016, they actually awarded me a Distinguished Instructor Award. I think what I love about this is because, or I guess the reason I love talking about this topic is because with what I do, I've been doing that for nearly 20 years. And I've seen people in those 20 years transform and change from the different phases of their life. So I've seen people in their 20s that, you know, when I started my career, and now they're in their 40s, right? They went from being single to married with children. I've seen people that were in their 40s and go through this period in their career, and then you know, now they're facing retirement. I've met with people early in my career that were just on the last few years of their career, and now they're talking about legacy planning with their children. So that's actually one of my favorite parts about this job, is to see those different phases. And then it kind of hit me. I think, like, if you're a medical professional that works on lungs, you probably have a lot of perspective on why not to smoke. And I think I apply those same principles of what I see to kind of how our family thinks. So anyway, I can kind of give an overview. As everything that's talked about earlier, when you're in your 20s, you're kind of in the independent stage. What I notice is people are kind of in their career exploration. And the things that I help them with that you should be thinking about as well, as it was echoed earlier, building a financial foundation from the get-go is important. And a good advisor can help. The cool thing is there's tools available today that are online that are pretty helpful as well, but it doesn't matter. You need to take those actions. And again, a good advisor can help. Some common misconceptions some common things I like to talk about is it is possible to save and invest while you're paying down debts, whether they be student or otherwise. I often hear people say, you know what, I'm going to wait till I retire all these debts and then I'm going to start saving for the future. And personally, I think you should be doing kind of both things in tandem to kind of be moving yourself forward financially. When you transition to your 30s and kind of mid 40s, as Pyle mentioned earlier and Pooja echoed as well, there now becomes this part in time where there's a high demand for the resources you have. It's time, it's money, it's health. Your family and your social networks are both constrained because, again, there's just you're getting pulled in so many different directions. But this is the same point in time that I've noticed that people also see a lot of their career growth, right? They transition titles, they transition pay. So when I'm advising people in that capacity, I'm telling them you should start looking at the road ahead, that they need to be doing both saving, which is, as Pooja mentioned for emergencies, for opportunities, it's short-term goals. And then also driving your long-term goals through investing, right? And here we're talking about stocks, real estate, whatever you're going to invest in and grow over time. And one of the major motivations is that you want to protect yourself in case you become part of what's called the sandwich generation, which means that you are taking care of a generation above you as well as a generation below you. So this means you have parents that you need to help out financially, as well as children that you're raising. And again, when people come to me and we're talking in their 30s, I often talk about this because that's something that's something I see in people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, where now all of a sudden they're taking care of their elderly parents as well as helping their children go through college. Both very expensive propositions. From there, the next thing that I would advise that most people don't think about is reviewing your insurance. And I'm not here to talk about insurance and bore you with all the details about that. But I think it's something that's heavily overlooked because we're so fixated on just saving as much money as possible. We all know Geico will help you save 50% or more, whatever. But really understand what those insurances cover and what they don't cover, because that, if you build this magnificent retirement plan that shows you're going to retire age 60, but you're neglecting your car insurance and you get in a car accident, either where you're damaged or the person other people are damaged, that can completely derail your plan for maybe $100, $200 more per month. Per year. So again, understanding your insurance, understanding what it does and what it doesn't do. And again, this is where I think it's important to work with good professionals for that. One thing that I was lucky with in my relationship is that my wife is not afraid about talking about finances, as demonstrated tonight. So that's something that, again, I see, a lot of couples come in and unfortunately get divorced. And it is true that finances are typically a big reason for that. They don't properly understand each other's goals. They don't properly visit that, and they don't kind of map out what it means. And again, we're not perfect, but this is something that I think we do well. And again, something that I think that could help a lot of relationships. Transitioning on to 40s and 50s, this is the point in time when people, they're at their peak earning in their career, mid 40s, 50s, maybe even part of their early 60s. And now the shift becomes, okay, well, now I'm growing and now I'm earning a lot of money. Oh, but I have children. So teaching them financial literacy, again, it's been echoed on this call that a lot of us, either we learned it from our parents or we just were lucky to understand it better than others. But ultimately, we all wish we had better financial literacy even at an early age. And the really strange thing is, again, this is probably more appropriate for people in their 50s and early 60s. You should start thinking about retirement, not just financially, but also from a lifestyle. If you're used to working 5 days a week, 8 hours per day, and now all of a sudden you think you're gonna just sit on the beach and drink Mai Tais, I make the comment, that's a vacation poster, that's not a retirement plan. You need to find something that's gonna fill your day. And if I go to the next slide, actually, Kyle. This is when you need to start thinking, okay, if I want to stop working and if I've been a good saver, what am I going to do next? And so it's important to, as we discussed earlier, kind of think about your hobbies. The most successful, the clients that I see have the most happiness in retirement aren't necessarily the most wealthy ones. They're the people that have something to do because they transitioned from working full time to now figuring out what to do with that time, whether it be family, whether it be church. Travel is pretty common, but it's not as common as people would think. So again, time to figure out hobbies, maybe go back to school to get another certification, purely for mental stimulation, social stimulation. These are the things I think people should be thinking about, even in their 50s and then entering their 60s. Because when you get to your late 50s and 60s, I call this the point in time where you're ending your peak earning years and you're moving on to career sunset. And this is where it's really important to reassess your investment allocation. Make sure you understand that we're not going to live forever, and we may not be as healthy as we are today. So understanding long-term care, things of that nature. And as Pooja mentioned, making sure you have an estate plan that's updated every few years as your life changes. And the kind of final phase of life is 70 plus, and this is when you're in retirement, your career is sunsetted. And again, I think it's important before you reach that part to identify. All the financial things obviously should be in order, but identify what you're going to do, because very few people sit around the house all day and watch TV or just travel all the time. You have all this time in your hands, and you need to figure out what you're going to do for your social stimulation, your mental stimulation, and just kind of even within your marriage. If one person's used to staying at home all day and now all of a sudden the other person's there all the time, again, that can kind of be a rude awakening, right? That all of a sudden people weren't used to they're used to time apart, now they're together. And it sounds romantically nice, but again, some people they're used to that separation, right? So anyway, so I do want to be mindful of time and move on to some top takeaways. So these are some quick takeaways that I think are important to know. I understand saving and investing are two different things. Savings are for emergencies, they're for opportunities, short-term goals. Investing is how you drive your goals forward, right? And so again, identifying those goals and understanding how much you need to be saving for each single goal, that's what a good financial advisor, I believe, should be doing. That's what we teach in the CFP world. Again, understanding your insurances, don't neglect it. Don't sign up for an appropriate amount. Don't pay for too much and don't pay for too little. And this all ties around creating a financial plan for your future. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people often say things like, I'm going to wait till I get my next promotion. I'm going to wait till I get my next raise. I'm going to wait till I'm married. I'm going to wait till the election's over. They always come up with a reason to procrastinate. And I always say, you shouldn't make investments based upon events that may or may not happen. You should be slowly saving systematically as often as early as you can. Nobody ever comes to my office in their 60s and says, I wish I started saving later in life. Nobody says, I wish I started saving less. They always say the same stuff. I wish I started saving earlier, I wish I saved more often, right? Anyway, as far as a good rule, a rough rule of thumb, this isn't perfect, but it's kind of one that kind of works. People say, how am I doing financially? And again, this is really impossible to answer at a broad level, but a simple one is if you take your age, divide it by 10, multiply that by your spending or your salary, that should be kind of, if you have that number and that's how much money you have saved for retirement, you're probably in good shape. Again, it's so general, it's impossible to know that for sure, but that's pretty much a good start. And again, if you're in your early 20s, you're making, let's say you're 25 and making $60,000, it's probably not realistic you have that much saved. But as a accumulation goal, that's what you should be putting your mind forward. And again, start saving for that, just the same way that you spend money on Netflix and other subscription services. I believe your retirement and your goal should be another service that you pay for. So Last but not least, money and wealth cannot buy happiness, health, or time. So just be mindful of that. I often see people say, if I just had a couple $1 million, I'd be in a better position. And I'm like, it does start up here. And that's why identifying your goals. And that's why I think this whole topic was relevant tonight, because we've, for those of us that have been working from home, we're now seeing, okay, maybe I don't miss going out as much. Maybe I didn't spend money on this. And we have the opportunity and luxury to kind of talk amongst each other and spend time where it's probably more important. So final disclosure, everything discussed tonight is meant to be general and educational in nature. Nothing specific on taxes, investments, or legal advice. Consult with a licensed professional for any of that. So, and of course, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. So with it approaching, I want to remind everybody to remember to be thankful for your family, your health, your opportunities in life. Take advantage of the time now to paint a clearer picture of what actually matters, of who that includes and what doesn't really matter that much. So I welcome any questions you guys have, and I'll kick back to Wendy.
Yeah, thank you. What an awesome Anteater tetrad photo there. Plus there's some young ones there too. Who are the young ones there?
Arian and Priya are future Anteaters.
Those are the future Anteaters.
Avi and Pooja's children.
Children, yes. Well, thank you so much. The wealth of information is amazing. And I do have a question here. Can you tell us some of your side hustles? What are some of the inspiration of your side hustles? Why didn't you start, Pavin? You might have mentioned it before, but that's one of our questions you can maybe highlight again.
Sure. I'll take that. So I just started a healthcare brand called Pav Life, named after me. Really looking at redefining healthcare, and that really involves, education, healthcare infrastructure, as well as engagement of healthcare professionals. Inspiration from that really came from, I did a little backstory was being somebody who's in the pre-medical field, trying to go to medical school now. I was very bent on the biology degree, the standard route kind of deal. My sisters were not about that. They really pushed back on that a lot. And, at that time I didn't recognize it, but it was for good reason, because again, diversifying your skill set and professional habits, that's where I landed on public health, with a fusion of the biological, life sciences, physical sciences world, as well as with applicable healthcare. Seeing how the healthcare systems now in California, New York, and now being a clinical researcher, both for the federal government as well as for a major hospital system, it's been very eye-opening to see the disparities in healthcare, both racially, sexually, and orientation-wise. There's a lot of healthcare issues that are prevalent in all parts of America, whether you're in a major city to a rural area, from access to coverage issues. That's really where the inspiration came from. One of my first big projects while launching this healthcare company was COVID hit within the first few months, and I quickly maneuvered my resources to fundraising and distributing PPE and other medical supplies to hospitals, first responders, and other government agencies all across the United States, from New York to California. So again, I think this kind of just culminates in what me, my siblings, and my brother-in-law have been saying, is diversifying skill sets, finding inspiration in things that I truly love. I don't get bored by reading clinical studies, research, publications, health news. I live and breathe that stuff, and I do that for a living, and I'm very happy with that.
Wow,
I hope
that's
that
great.
answers the question.
Yeah, you've taken one of your passions and you've really critically applied that. So that's awesome. I have another question here. What do you, this goes to Avi, what do you recommend for looking for a financial advisor? What on the opposite, what are some things to stay away from?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think the term financial advisor is so broad that you should ask, the two major things I think you should ask are, one, what to expect, or you should figure out what to expect. Do they do financial planning, or do they just get financial advice? Are they specific to just the investment world, or insurance world, or do they look at the entire picture? So again, somebody calls themselves a financial advisor, but in reality, they're just an investment broker or just an insurance broker. If you want comprehensive advice, you should see that you get that through the process. And the second thing to understand, I think, is how they get compensated. There's many different ways. There's either kind of the fee only, which means you just pay either a flat fee, like a flat hard dollar amount, or you pay a percentage of the money you manage. I'm sorry, the money they manage for you. Or there's what's called fee-based, meaning they charge you a fee for the money they manage, but they can also offer you other services, whether that be investment brokerage, other investment brokerages, or insurance products. And then there's purely commission-based, which is people that they only get compensated when you buy or when they sell you a product, right? So there's understanding that conflict. There's good and bad in all three different forms. But again, I think understanding what you're going to get for the relationship as well, and you can ask them what their process is, and you can ask them if they do planning or just give advice, and then how they get paid. I think those are the two biggest things. I have a CFP certification. I teach in the program at UCI, so I'm inclined to say that's a very important thing as well. But just like everything else in life, there's good and bad everywhere.
So, and obviously you need to ask the person, can you tell me how you're compensated? And if they don't reveal that, maybe that's the red flag.
Yeah, I mean, especially because in today's world, we're trained so well to talk about that and make it clear and disclose to clients, so that if they're not telling you, then yes, you should be very curious. Yes.
Yeah, going the other way. Well, we are right upon our time to end our time together. I thank you so much for sharing your special wisdom with our wonderful tetrad here. And again, I just want to re-emphasize that this was a production of Anteater Wellness Wednesday put on by our UCI alumni chapters again tonight, ICS, which is Information and Computer Sciences School, and also the New York City alumni chapter. And at our follow-up survey, we're going to have an opportunity for you to look and see if you're interested in joining one of our chapters. We have 36. We're actually onboarding a few more. We're going to have 40 by the end of this educational year. So there might be one in your area of interest or in your region. And what's great now that we all have experienced this Zoom life is making it available to have someone like Pavan come from New York and be with us here in real time. So even if you're not in the area, you can participate. Want to let you know our next Wellness Wednesday on December 16th, which we decided to make it fun, make it winter holiday oriented, and it's aromatherapy presented by the OC chapter. So we'll have some fun there. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining us for Wellness Wednesday. And Avi, Pooja, Payal, and Pavan, we really appreciate your time and talent that you gave with us tonight. So
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
everyone,
Happy
for being here.
Thanksgiving, everyone.